Hi, I'm VR Extern from VR Extern Handmade Knives, and today I want to talk a little bit about how to design a knife and how to transfer it to your steel. So a few things when it comes to knife designing. I know a lot of people are struggling with it when they're first starting out. I know I did. The most important thing is it is really simple to design a knife, but you have to do it a lot. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and it is just that simple. I have this book full of knife designs, and of course you can just copy and paste the designs from this book, because that is what it's made of. But I find it extremely satisfying to design your own knife, to draw your own knife from scratch, and then build it and bring it to life. What I do is I have a basic idea of the knife I want to build in my head. Then I go to this book and I look at a lot of handle designs and blade designs and overall shapes of the knife. And then I will take a little bit from each thing I like and I'll put it together in one drawing to represent almost the idea I have in my head, but it's still a really rough drawing and it's not the final product. After I have a basic drawing of the knife, I will go and refine the knife to the client's or my preferences to form a better representation of what I want to build. Now, most of the time, the finished drawing is a lot different from the first rough sketch I made out of the book. So it's just about refining the product until you're satisfied or until the client is satisfied. Sometimes I will do 6, 7, 8 sketches to get to the final sketch. The last thing I want to talk about before I show you how to design a knife. I don't like those plastic stencils you can buy from the shops. Most of those times, the lines don't look natural. I want my lines to flow across the whole knife and look natural in a whole, not look good one line at a time and then the whole knife doesn't look natural. So I want to keep the knife as natural and as flowy as possible. So I'm almost going for something like this, a small little EDC hunter type carry knife, just a small little knife that is smooth on the eyes and easy to use and small to carry around with you the whole day. The first thing I like to do is just make a block out of the material size I have. So most of the time I have enough material to make any type of knife I want, but I always draw a block because I want to stay in the specific measurements for the client's measurements or my own preferences. So this will keep your drawing to the right size because it's easy to get carried away and draw a huge knife. The next thing I do is I mark out where I want the bolster to be, where I want the handle to end, and where I want the blade to start. So for example, this block is where I want the bolster to be, and my bevel will start on this line and the handle will end at the back of the bevel. If you do not do this, it will be tricky to get the right proportions. So measure those out, get the right proportions, look at another knives you have with you and feel the handle size and the blade length and all that kind of stuff. Then you can plan out where you want the specific components of the knife to be. Here's my book full of knife designs. I really like the shape of the handle of this knife. It looks really comfortable. I've made a few of this specific knives, but I really like the shape of the handle. I don't really like the shape of the blade for this specific knife, but I think I'm going to use this blade shape for this little EDC hunter type knife, and also the shape of the bolster for this knife. As you can see, here is the basic sketch of the handle. It looks really bad, but luckily this is just the first sketch. There's going to be a lot of iterations with this one, so I'm happy with that for now. Let's start with the bolster shape. There's the bolster drawn out now. It looks really bad now, but just get the proportions right and the feel of the curves right, then we can move forward. The blade is also drawn now. It looks really bad, but let's start to make some changes to it. As you can see, I made a lot of changes, especially in the handle part. The tip, the blade and the bolster part I really liked, but you can see I made a big change in the handle part. So now I'm going to transfer it to another clean piece of paper and continue working on it. Why do you want to transfer the original drawing onto a clean piece of paper? The lines we drew to make sure the size of the knife is correct is going to mess with your eyes a little bit in terms of the natural flow of the knife. So working on a clean piece of paper will get you a more natural result. So now that the knife is on a clean piece of paper, a few little things are still looking weird for me. Like this part, it's too deep of the bow, it must be more straight and more concave. This little indent is too small and I think the edge is not round enough to make this edge sharper. Okay, so I did a little bit more editing on the knife. And how I do it is I make the lines a little bit wider in the direction I want the change to be. So in this line I made it wider to the top part because I wanted a little bit deeper. When I make my final sketch, I will use the top part of this wider line. Now that I'm happy with the shape and the design of the knife and the proportions of the knife, I will go and put in where I want my bevel to start, where I want my holes for the bolster to be, and where I want my holes for the handle to be, because that is important to have when you are grinding out the knife. Okay, so I've put in a bevel and where I want the holes to be. It's not important to measure it, it just helps you to see how how the proportions of the knife will look and be a more accurate representation of what the finished knife will actually look like. Okay, so after looking a few minutes at the knife, I realized I don't like the backside of the bolster, so I went ahead and changed that. Now I'm really happy with the design of the knife and ready to build this knife. I'm going to transfer it to a clean piece of paper with sharper lines so I can be more exact when cutting out the knife. Okay, so here's the final design of the knife. Now it still looks a little bit rough, but what I always do is I cut out the knife and put it on a piece of steel, and then when I have it on steel, I refine it a little bit more, because you can work a lot more precise on steel and get a feel for the knife, how it feels in your hands, how it looks, and all that kind of stuff. So you will never be perfect with your drawing. So always remember, when you draw a knife, don't stick to the drawing like it's the beginning and the end. You can always change something about the knife when you have the steel in your hands, because then you'll be able to feel the knife a lot better, feel the flow, feel how it sits in your hands and how it looks, the proportions and all that kind of stuff. Usually at this stage I make 3 copies of the drawing of the knife so that I can cut out each section of the knife. I will use one full drawing for the layout on the steel, then I will use another one when I cut it up for the handle, and then I will use another one for the bolster when I cut it out. This makes it a lot easier to transfer your drawing onto steel, rather than just having one and you'll try to measure and all that kind of stuff and redraw it on the steel. There's no use for that. Just make 3 or 4 copies and then you can cut it out and paste it on the steel as you want. That is how I design a knife. In the next video I will show my complete process on how I take the knife from being on paper till the very last step, until heat treatment. There's a lot of things you have to do in between, from the start till heat treatment, that you will have to do before heat treatment, like drilling the holes and that kind of stuff. I will show all that in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing and liking the video.